this is what we've all been waiting for. The dissidents of the year. The big ones. The big ones coming up right now. In fact, we do have now on our... we do have a drum roll. Look at that. We haven't used that in a while. Forgot all about it. All right, folks. Dissidents of the year. Kind of a long list. We'll go through these not quickly, but concisely. We're going to start out with Peanut the squirrel.
Poor
Peanut the squirrel, who loomed
Rest in
large
power,
over the election. Rest in power. Peanut. Many people are saying, many fantastic, smart people are saying the election of Donald Trump was Peanut's hand, exerting power over the universe, gifted to him by the mafia state of New York for forcing him out of a happy home and euthanizing him. We have not forgotten you, and America will not either. Peanut the squirrel.
Never forget.
Power. That's right. Never forget. Peanut the squirrel. All right, our next couple are some free speech wins of the year, dissidents of the year. Obviously, Julian Assange and the Free Assange movement. One of our great pleasures this year was sending Russ out to London to cover those Day X hearings, where he spent 2 days out in the rainy streets of London on a diet of watery baked beans to fight the good fight and platform those who fight the good fight, everybody at WikiLeaks and the Free Assange movement. This was a massive win, and I know it doesn't feel like a win because it's a plea deal, but I would have told you at the beginning of this year they were going to torture this guy to death and he would never see the light of day again. And it was really a testament to the activism surrounding his cause that compelled the United States government to offer him that plea deal to avoid a PR nightmare of him. I don't even want to finish that sentence, really, of the worst happening during a campaign season. And that is why I think they eventually caved. And it was on the strength of the grassroots. Obviously, our friend Misty Winston, one of the premier Assange activists in this space, had a lot to do with it. Everybody did a heavy lift to get him home where he is. It's probably the feel-good story of the year. And so congratulations to Julian and the family and everybody who worked so hard for so long to see him free once again.
Yeah, that's it. When I was there, Stella, after the first day, they felt that it was a kangaroo court. They didn't use those words, but that's basically what they were saying. After the second day, their mood seemed to lighten. They seemed to feel that the kinds of questions the judges were asking indicated some sympathy to the case that they were making. So, hey, a lot of times in this space, it can feel hopeless. You can feel like, what are we accomplishing? And hey, this is a good example of why you do it. Because there is absolutely no way, if this had not become the global cause it became, that he would be free today. No way.
Exactly. Good point, Charles.
You did that, folks.
Absolutely.
You did that.
No, 100%. No doubt about that whatsoever. All right. Our second or third, we want to throw Peanut under the bus so soon. But Uhuru, dissidents of the year for fighting a similar battle. Obviously, they did not suffer the same fate that Julian did for so many years, but they were threatened with jail time. They were charged with being Russian agents, which carried a maximum sentence of 15 years, which for O'Malley, that's likely a life sentence, not to be morbid, but he is over 80 years old, and he himself said that if they convict him of being a Russian agent, that's likely it for him. He will likely spend the rest of his life behind bars. They were acquitted of that charge, so they beat that charge outright. They were found guilty on a second charge of conspiracy, which, in our opinion, they will likely beat on appeal, because how could you charge someone with attempting to be a Russian agent when they weren't a Russian agent? The judge said the main mistake they made was not filing paperwork as foreign agents, but they were acquitted of being foreign agents. So they should have been acquitted outright. They were not. The judge sided essentially with them at sentencing and sentenced them to probation, not 1 day behind bars, not one dime of a fine. So that's a huge win for them. And they, just like the Free Assange movement, they fought this fight at the grassroots level. We were privileged to have O'Malley on a few times. I spoke to Penny Hess and their lawyer in an interview as well. So we were privileged to be able to do our small part to chip in. We know Jimmy had him on his show right before the sentencing date as well. And so we were happy to play whatever part we played in this, but more than that, we're happy for them. And they won their freedom by fighting for it. And again, just like in the Julian Assange case, is it a total victory? Not on paper, but in the context of this global crackdown on free speech, to have these two, to have them free is a major victory. And it's a victory that they really fought for and earned by rallying the grassroots, which means they are, of course, among the dissidents of the year. No question about that.
Well, and this is where we just saw a fracture in the MAGA coalition this week around the visas. I suspect you're going to see a fracture around speech as well, because you have people in that lane with very totalitarian tendencies. Then you had Tucker Carlson was the first major person to platform the Uhuru case and to bring it to public attention. So do you wind up seeing a conflict between a crackdown on speech and people like Tucker Carlson, who really, to his credit, took people with whom ideologically, as he said in that interview, he doesn't have a lot in common, and platformed their situation because it was a legitimate speech issue.
100%. All right, now we're going to get into the Palestine dissidents. Rifat al-Hariri, rest in power. Palestinian poet and academic whose book now is on the charts. You can buy it at Goodreads. We'll put a link when we clip this in the description of the video, called If I Must Die. And of course, tragically was killed in an Israeli airstrike. I suspect they targeted him specifically. I don't believe that that was an accident. He was a very relatively high-profile writer, poet, and artist, and so obviously deserves his spot on this list. No doubt about that. As does this gentleman who we just did a segment on, Hussam Abu Safia. He was the director of the last functioning hospital in northern Gaza, which was just raided last week, accused without any evidence whatsoever, and that's according to the Associated Press, that's according to Western mainstream media, accused without evidence whatsoever of being a militant. What he was the director of a hospital that was of vital importance, and he stuck with his job and with his patients until the very last moment that he possibly could. And we don't know what shape he's in right now because he is in Israeli custody. So we are hoping for the best, but it does not look good, if I'm to be honest with you. And so there you have that. We just did that segment. We just dropped that clip, I think, this morning, so you can find out more about him. But obviously a worthy recipient. Also, Eisenhower Ezgi, friend of Shama's, who we had on, I think, the day or two after she was killed in the West Bank. She was an activist, went there to protest, and she was shot. Remember, that's the shot that they said bounced off the floor.
Yeah, so it bounced off.
Yeah,
magic
off the
bullet.
floor and hit her in the head. So yeah, just
so young, whole
so
life
young.
ahead of her.
Yep, absolutely. Horrible, but these are people who they put it all on the line. All three of them. Here's a feel good story this year. This is a California prisoner. We did a segment on this a few months back. I think it was over the spring or the summer. He goes by Hamza. He chose not to reveal his real name to the media, but he is a California inmate who donated his 13-cent an hour prison labor salary to Palestinian causes. So that is a pretty stunning act of solidarity on his part. That was a great story when we did that. Part of how there's so many stories this year. So part of what we did to come up with this list is we just look back over the video library to see, is there anything that happened in April that maybe is not at top of mind? And I saw this and I'm like, of course, yes.
Yeah, you can easily wind up succumbing to recency bias. Oh, it happened last week. That's the biggest thing that happened.
Right. Exactly. Now, of course, in an election year, the election is the biggest news event, and that happens right before the end of the year. So there's that, how it coincides. But yes, obviously, he's earned his spot there. Now, this next one, is one that we mourn, and obviously we need people who believe in a free Palestine to be here on Earth with us fighting the fight. So we cannot encourage or condone this action, but we can remember fondly a man whose conviction led him to an extreme act of protest, and that's Aaron Bushnell. And that really shocked the conscience of many in this space. I wish I could say it shocked the conscience of the country, but foreign policy remained bottom of the list this election season. Only 4% of the American people said it was a priority on election day. Mm-hmm. So I wish I could tell you it shocked the conscience of the country, but it certainly shocked my it certainly created a wave in our space, and what we do with that is what we do with that. We try our best. That's all we could do, and we got to remember him. Anything on him?
No, I mean, what can I add?
Yeah, what can you add? What can you say? What can you say? All right. The counterpart to the uncommitted movement, who were the sellouts of the year, the Abandon Harris movement, who stuck it out, who said we are abandoning Joe Biden. We are not only are we not voting for Joe Biden, we are organizing a boycott vote against Joe Biden. They stuck to it to the very end. They took all the slings and arrows that came with it. Hassan Abdel Salam, great guy. We interviewed him. Russ interviewed him in person in Chicago, and then we had both Hassan and Shama on Jimmy's show in the closing weeks of the campaign. Good on them for not bending the knee. It's refreshing to see people who mean what they say in this space, because what do we hear? What do we get a lot of in progressive circles? Oh, we're not giving up this time. And then, well, but Trump at the end of the day. They stuck it out, and good for them.
Yeah. Oh, they picked Waltz. Free school lunches on the menu. We're Democrats. We're back, baby.
Right.
Progressives inside the tent.
Exactly.
Forget about the genocide. Forget about it. We're back on the inside, baby. I'm sorry, man. Like, commentators who went that way, but what a fucking disgrace, man. All these fucking people who used them picking Waltz as some kind. Oh yeah, no genocide.
Right.
Vaguely progressive Midwestern governor. Yeah, well, clearly they just sounded the all clear for all the progressives to run back into the Democratic Party. What a bunch of grifters, man. Yeah, no, meeting him in person, he was a very humane, very humanitarian, very sensitive man.
Yes.
It's very moving to meet him and talk to him. And yeah, man, they stuck to their principles, and that's not the way to go. That's not the way to go. Look, those uncommitted people, they're looking for jobs now in government, given the Trump one.
Right, they're like the Sunrise Movement.
Not going to be as, yeah, that's what most of these people are. Our revolution. When you see these people who won't really challenge the real power inside, they give like vague, it's controlled opposition. I mean, honestly, that's what all these people who ran to back the Democrats as soon as they picked Waltz are. They're controlled opposition. You notice they always find an excuse to tell you why you have to vote for the Democrat every election. In between, they're radicals. Oh, these Democrats. And then they herd you right back in. That's what they're there for. Do they get paid by anyone in the government? I don't know. I think in some cases, yes. In some cases, no. I think you don't need to get paid in that way. It's a lane in media. And they're not, that's a particular lane. There are other lanes that other people pick, but that's a lane. The half-ass radical who always runs back home to the Democrats.
Yep. But not them. Not them. So they are included.
No,
dissidents.
They did. No, well, that's what I'm saying, man. There's nothing in it for them.
Of course.
There's nothing in it for them. That's pure principle.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. The Boeing whistleblowers, who are no longer with us, shall we say, that's what we can prove. What we think is beyond that. Joshua Dean and John Barnett.
Yeah. With John Barnett in particular, it's just very, very, very unlikely. We can't prove anything. It's very unlikely that this man was not murdered.
Yep.
They call it a suicide. It makes no sense. This man was coming to the culmination of years and years and years of effort to reveal what he knew about Boeing, and right before he's going to give a deposition, he commits suicide. You know, because these things will not be investigated by corporate media or mainstream media, the topic is not up for discussion in the mainstream. Clearly, there are people out there that companies like Boeing can hire to kill people like this. That is
Yep.
the world we're actually living in. We're living in a world where it is, and especially Boeing, it really is not surprising because what do? They're a military contractor. Like, I don't know that all corporations have those hookups, but
Right.
they do. They do.
If anyone does, it's them. Right.
If anyone
Exactly.
does, it's them. They know some ex-military kind of people who, do wet work, as they call it. And
Right.
that's what I would say almost certainly happened to Barnett, and most likely happened to, I'm sorry, I forget his name.
His name is Joshua Dean.
Joshua Dean, as I recall, it was like he suddenly succumbed to a mysterious, odd illness, and he had been in very good shape, and all of a sudden there was this very sudden,
Yeah, the freak
bizarre
thing. Right.
Yeah. So, yeah,
Incredibly courageous and perhaps paid the price. But that's why it takes such courage to come forward. Speaking of courage, Jeremy Lafredo, we got to give a shout out to one of our peers in this space who was essentially tortured for 3 days in an Israeli prison. What did he have? One Dixie cup and one Dixie cup full of water and one cup of chocolate pudding in 3 days in Israeli detention for publishing information that PBS had already published, and Israel tried to roust him and say that he had given sensitive information to the enemy by simply publishing the location of missile landings from the Iranian airstrikes. They then sent one of their goons in ultimately and said, get out of here, kid. They basically admitted they had no case and that they had essentially tortured him for no reason and said, leave and don't come back, which I'm sure he's not itching to go back anytime soon. I'm sure he's enjoying the holidays safe at home, where we're glad he is. But yes, had to give a shout out to Jeremy.
Yeah, and one of the reasons he's on this list, and I said this when this happened, hey, Jeremy knows better than we do what the consequences of getting on the wrong side of the IDF could be. They kill journalists with impunity. No one's going to hold them accountable. That's been demonstrated many times over. They can just whack you, say, yes, the bullet, it bounced. The bullet bounced, right? Just the balls to go there at this moment and do that kind of reporting. I wouldn't do it.
No.
I wouldn't do it. But he did, and we're very lucky he got out.
Of course. Russell wanted me to include this one.
Hey, okay. So let me make my case. All right. It is a hyper competitive industry. She's not Hollywood royalty. She's not a nepo baby. She's not connected like that. She is one of the luckiest people on the planet. She wanted to be a successful musical theater actress. Not only does she become a successful musical actress, she becomes a film star. And you know what she does? She says, fuck the patriarchy, fuck Israel, fuck Hollywood. I'm going to burn my entire career down by just being the most unconscionably obnoxious asshole that Hollywood has ever seen. Everything they cast me in, I'm going to trash the source material. I'm going to deconstruct all of these beloved characters and iconic films that I'm cast in. I'm going to trash my co-stars. I'm just fuck it. I've reached the pinnacle of my career. Nowhere to go but down. I'm going out in a blaze of glory. I'm burning down my entire career. Fuck the fans. Fuck Disney. Fuck everybody. So, as obnoxious and cringe as she might be, That's pretty dissident to just decide at what is she, 22? I just never you know what? I'm never going to work again. I'm committed to having a career at McDonald's after this. Fuck it, whatever.
Royalties, baby. See, he made the case. I didn't even have to. See, you made your case well. All right, folks. So we got one more dissident of the year, and there are some dissidents who go behind enemy lines.
Yeah.
Some dissidents who travel into the belly of the beast, or in this case, into the pelvis of the beast. And in this case, we are, of course, referring to Benjamin Netanyahu's enlarged prostate.
Yes.
Last minute contender for dissidents of the year in before the buzzer, the enlarged prostate of Benjamin Netanyahu, fighting the good fight from a very, very uncomfortable position.
He may have fucked Joe Biden, but he won't be fucking anyone else anytime soon.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So, well done. Well done. Really making the ultimate sacrifice, the enlarged prostate of Benjamin Netanyahu. Enlarged. Some people say he has prostate cancer, and because you don't usually get a prostate removed when it's enlarged. Having it removed suggests cancer. And so Mark Lamont Hill tweeted out that he had heard reporting that he had stage 3 prostate cancer. Mm-hmm. And I tweeted out that, in fact, it's the prostate cancer that has stage 3 Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah.
So we will see which one of those is true. But we know that, see, Benjamin Netanyahu, not all bad. Not all bad. He's got a dissident prostate in there.
Yeah.
So there you go. There you go.
Yeah. That prostate is doing the Lord's work.
Shout out to Benjamin Netanyahu's prostate.
Please clap.